Here is Dungeons and Dragons. So
Nice,
this
nice.
is called the Queen's Cradle, inspired by the Tyranny of Dragons mod for D&D. And in this episode, we have about 15 to 16 minutes of great content. Starts off with a scene where they are in getting to this boy who's got tattoos over his face. They rescue him, and then a tale ensues into this dragon. So, a lot of very cool visual feasting happening here. But I want to get into what the panel thought of this episode because the D&D was a big one. It hit home, and there's some D&D gamers here. So, SPG, I want to get your thoughts on what you thought of the character development, maybe some visual storytelling you want to touch on, or how this really felt like a D&D campaign, or did they miss the mark? Let's get some of your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I did feel like a D&D campaign. Felt like the end of one, to be 100% honest, or a fantastic beginning because you don't mix in Tiamat into the mix. Like as soon as I figured out that they were actually going up against Tiamat, I was like, oh, it's over for these adventurers. But the boy you mentioned, he's haunted by this sinister force throughout the episode. And it's so cool how they sort of break that down. The essence leaves him, and it ends up creating Tiamat in a spectacular fashion. But some of the like I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. The story was really cool. It left you wanting more. But there was a few negatives, like some of the inherent silliness that happens at the table wasn't quite in there, and it felt introductory, and rather than like a full standalone story. But it was really cool. I enjoyed it.
Excellent synopsis on that. And we'll get into Gem here. Your relation to D&D and introduction. How did this make you feel? Do you think they hit the mark? What was your thoughts and review of the episode?
So in terms of D&D, I've never played Baldur's Gate, and I've never done real life D&D yet. So my only introduction to D&D is the movie from 1 or 2 years ago, on Honor Among Thieves, I think it was called, which I absolutely loved. But aside from not being into D&D, I do love medieval fantasy stuff. I play MMORPGs. I just love those type of worlds. And with the secret level of what they've shown, it's great. Like with like they got like what 10 minutes to tell a story. It's very compact. They just throw you in there. Like there's no introduction or whatsoever. They just throw you in there and hope you can understand what's going on within the first minute, and then you can already guess how they've come together and stuff, and then you just watch their journey for the next 10 minutes, and then yeah, it was visually nice. Again, you have like 10 minutes to know these characters. Like within the time limit they've had, they've done a great job at that. Yeah, that's that's about it really.
Just to springboard a little bit off of what Jem just said, it's basically like you would take a 10 episode story arc and trim all the fat off of it and give it to you in a 15-minute display. Like it's really well done.
Maker, another D&D player. Did you have any thoughts? Are you able to jump off of mute? How
Yeah.
did this make you feel in terms of experiencing D&D in the real world?
I did like it. I agree with SPG that it kind of misses that silliness that happens at the table and I guess wackiness, and just mostly stays pretty serious for the story bit. But like you can guess, because all these characters are very different ethnicities and like visually they're very different from each other, but they've banded together and they kind of trust each other, and that's like the whole thing at the end is like even though they might not have known this person as long as the others, they're still willing to stand by them and fight by their side. So yeah, I really liked it. Visually, it was super impressive, and hopefully we see more in season 2.
A question I wanted to ask to the seasoned D&D players. When we saw action scenes like the invading forces coming in on our heroes, how did you feel like they displayed the spells? We saw things like Ice Storm, we saw a deflect of a missile, perhaps. Do you think they captured these moves and attacks similar to what a D&D table is like?
I will say yes, but it is all subjective because what you're doing is at the table, you're building a representation in your mind of what took place. And combat takes a while, but literally, if you played it out, it would be seconds. Like, I mean, it's really neat the visual representation and style that they went with, but it is subjective, I would say.
All right. And Nads, did you want to get some thoughts into here? How did you feel like the D&D story came off? Did you enjoy it? Was there parts like Tiamat emerging from the dragon like aliens that made you feel a certain way? You want to get into your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I found like this episode is like a prequel for maybe a story they can start now. Like seeing how Baldur's Gate 3 was very well maybe D&D want to get more involved into video game and do this, right? So maybe, cause like maybe it's opening for doing more video game in that genre. And then I've seen a few of those episodes, and it all seems to relate or like get close to become a video game at the end. So because it's all related to video game, I feel there's going to be more coming out of that, and I think like that feels like a prequel to story or something to create a bigger story, if that makes sense. So that could be interesting to see further, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of these I would love to see in full-fledged movies, 10 episode arcs. They all seem to have those kind of legs behind them. All in all, my takeaway after watching the Dungeons and Dragons episode is I'd really like to experience a campaign. There was a lot of very cool elements. And obviously, the roles that each character play are extremely important. Many references to now we've found our cleric, we're missing a cleric, and who's the one to make this invulnerability bubble and kind of save everybody? It's the cleric. So I like it. It had a lot of great takeaways for me, and hey, I'll watch anything else D&D related, yeah, at this point. So maybe I'll have to catch that movie Jem was talking about. I don't think I saw it. The
No,
major
I think
motion picture.
it's on Netflix, or yeah, it's on there.
Okay. Nice. Any more wrap ups? Your interpretation of perhaps the Dungeon Master. Do you think that they should have had more interpretation of a DM? What are your thoughts on maybe that one?
The story wasn't set up for a DM. You're literally catching up with adventurers while they're deep, or at the beginning, or at the end of a journey. Like you said, they rounded out their party, so it seems like it would be a beginning. But dropping a large character like Tiamat, I don't know. They didn't have a chance against Tiamat. They're lucky that that boy haunted by sinister forces was as powerful as he was.
And just for 2 seconds, because noob here. And the thing doesn't, the episode does not explain it at all. But could you just explain Tiamat?
Yeah, so Tiamat is like an elemental dragon, basically. So okay, I'm gonna read you a little bit here. Um, the rise of Tiamat. This is just a little excerpt from the rise of Tiamat. The cult of the dragon leads the charge in an unholy crusade to bring Tiamat back to the realms. So there's a whole bunch of lore baked in here. But Tiamat is basically an elemental dragon. Um, they even in the Boulder's Gate, there's lore in there about how the Githyanki are allowed to ride red dragons. It goes all the way back to Tiamat. So this character is like a almost a banished deity or a banished god from the realms. So it's a very important and very pivotal character for them to have just dropped into the beginning of a story, or even at the end of one, to be fair.
Very
Interesting.
cool. Very cool. Well, that was the review. If you liked it, like and subscribe. We'll be reviewing every single one of the secret level episodes.